Strange girls always appear around my childhood friend. I know they're trying to conquer him, but none of them ever succeeded. Until Sarah showed up. She was different from all the other girls. She would praise his clean, efficient way of dissecting butterflies. She would nod along to his most shocking, terrifying thoughts. She bragged to me, triumphant, convinced she was the savior who would redeem this dark, brooding boy. But she never noticed that the look in his eyes when he watched her was exactly the same as when he watched those butterflies. My childhood friend, Silas Vane, is a psychopath. When we first met, he was 6 years old. He looked like an exquisite porcelain doll, harmless and sweet. His smile was sugary, like marshmallow fluff. I let my guard down and took the chocolate bar he offered. I peeled back the wrapper. A swarm of red fire ants crawled out. I looked up. Silas was smiling sweetly at me. I calmly picked the chocolate up from the ground and tossed it into the trash can. After washing my hands, I came back out and said slowly, "Thanks for the welcome gift. I hated it. Don't do it again." Silas stopped smiling. His pitch-black eyes stared straight at me. I could see the question in them. Why wasn't I scared? I smiled faintly. That trick was amateur. Not nearly as interesting as the surprise my mom got me. For my 5th birthday, Mom gave me 2 beautiful butterfly knives. I practiced with them for a year before sharpening the blades. After I showed Silas my knife skills, he walked away face tight. I rested my chin on my hand and thought, he probably won't be back. A week later, I received a huge bouquet of roses. Little Silas smiled angelically at my door. "I picked these in my backyard. Hope you like them." The roses were vibrant, still dewy from the morning. I smiled back. "Thanks." The second he left, I threw the flowers into the trash. A moment later, scorpions, centipedes, spiders and fat caterpillars crawled out from between the petals. I stood up, dusted off my clothes and went home. The next day after school, a snake appeared in my room. I grabbed it by the head and tossed it neatly over the fence into the Vane family's backyard. From then on, all sorts of weird things started popping up in my house. I knew it was that little psycho. Every time, I returned the favor. Until one day, Silas invited me to his house. His bedroom had an entire wall filled with butterfly specimens. Silas's voice came from behind me, soft and almost dreamy. "Isn't it beautiful? Beautiful things in this world are fleeting, but there's always a way to make them eternal. Specimens preserve the beauty of butterflies forever, keeping them in their most stunning moment." I took a sip of my milk and said flatly, "But they lost their freedom." "What does that matter?" Little Silas laughed, his voice full of childish innocence. "As long as they can stay with me forever. Don't you think so, Joe?" I didn't answer him. I closed my eyes and collapsed to the floor. After a long silence, a delighted laugh rang through the air. "Now you're mine too." Humming a happy tune, he took a syringe from a drawer and crouched beside me. The next second, I flipped over, pinned him down and snatched the syringe. I pressed the needle against Silas's neck, looking down at him. "You want to turn me into a specimen too? Don't you want to be with me forever, Joe?" He blinked up at me, not feeling a shred of guilt. I hauled him up, slammed him against the wall and beat him up. Only after dunking his head into the bathtub for the 3rd time did I let go. "Don't cross my line, little psycho." Silas pushed his wet hair back, revealing a pair of beautiful eyes that shone with terrifying brightness. He actually started laughing happily. "Joe, I like you so much. I don't want a specimen anymore. I want a living Joe. Let's be friends forever, okay? We'll even die together." Get lost. I'm not dying. Since then, I've been stuck with this little psycho. But over the years, I noticed something amusing. Strange girls would always appear around Silas, stay for a while and then vanish. Later I found out they were trying to conquer him, like he was some kind of game route. No one ever succeeded. Except for Sarah. She stayed by Silas's side the longest, maybe because she was the most unique of them all. That day, I walked past the flower bed and saw Silas chatting with her. He wore a polite smile, the same one he used on everyone he considered a toy. I listened for a bit. It was the same script he used on all the girls. Feeling bored, I turned to leave. But then I heard Sarah say, "It's not your fault, Silas. You're a good person. Blame Joe and your parents. It's all their fault." Me? What did I do now? Sarah's eyes filled with tears, her expression a mix of sympathy and heartbreak. "I came too late. If I'd appeared earlier, I would have protected you. I never would have let Joe hurt you. If I had a cold childhood friend like Joe and parents who ignored me, I'd be twisted too. I understand you, Silas. Let me stay with you." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Silas needing protection? That was the best joke I'd heard all year. Sarah whipped around and shrieked. "Why are you hiding there eavesdropping?" I kindly warned her. "Silas isn't a good person. You'd better stay away from him." But Sarah reacted like I was some final boss. She shielded Silas behind her and glared at me warily. "You're trying to steal Silas, aren't you, Joe? Keep dreaming. Silas told me everything. You've been giving him the cold shoulder for years, causing his psychological issues. Now that I'm here to protect him, I will never hand him over to you. I know what you're planning, trying to drive a wedge between us, hoping I'll doubt him and leave. But I'm not weak. I'll not only save Silas, I'll make him better." Disappointment and condemnation filled her eyes. "Joe, you really don't deserve to be his childhood friend. Please let Silas go. Since none of you care about him, from now on, I'll be his salvation. She was absolutely baffling, so I turned and left. Before Sarah, the girls around Silas would force themselves to stay a few days before vanishing without a trace. Sarah was different. She praised Silas's technique with the butterflies, calling his cuts clean and elegant. She validated his horrifying ideas. When she saw what Silas kept in the basement, her eyes actually lit up. Silas, you're so special. Even Silas thought that was weird. He asked why she wasn't afraid. Sarah said he was forced to be twisted by us, and that being different was perfectly normal. Hilarious. Silas's parents love each other. They're open-minded and basically let him do whatever he wants. As for me cold-shouldering him, complete nonsense. Silas was just born wrong. I don't know what kind of emotional Kool-Aid Sarah chugged to convince herself he had a tragic childhood and needed saving. She probably never noticed that the way Silas looked at her was the same way he looked at those butterflies. The joint exam scores came out. I habitually looked at the first line where my name usually was. It wasn't. First place Sarah. My rank had dropped below 800. Impossible. I went straight to the office. I want to see my original test papers, I told my homeroom teacher. My voice was calm, but my fingers were ice cold. He tried to comfort me while logging into the system. It's probably a scanning issue or they miscalculated the total. Your grades are always solid. We'll get it fixed. The dean, who'd been hovering nearby, chimed in. Exactly. If we don't get this corrected, our school loses its top student. That would be a real shame. But when my answer sheet appeared on the screen, the office went quiet. Most of the page was blank. Only a few lines had anything written on them. The rest was filled with a childish, repeated scroll. Hia 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 hia. My name was printed clearly in the candidate information box. My handwriting copied perfectly. My homeroom teacher frowned. Joe, what's going on here? I stared at the screen. That stupid, mocking hia hia was identical to what I'd seen carved into my ruined essay later. And Sarah. Sarah had somehow landed first in the entire grade. I knew exactly what had happened, but there was no way to explain it without sounding delusional. Who would believe that someone had silently swapped my answer sheet, then used my handwriting as a joke? When I walked back into class, a small group of girls stormed over, faces flushed with anger. Joe, how could you be like this? One of them shouted, eyes red. Just because you're fighting with Silas, you have to drag all of us down with you? I blinked. What? You reported us, another girl snapped. You told on us for dating. Now the school called our parents and we're getting written up. Do you have a problem? I looked at them, expression flat. Who told you I reported you? We saw you. The first girl shot back. You went to the office yesterday morning. Right after you went in, we got pulled out and busted. You think that's a coincidence? First of all, I said evenly, I didn't report anyone. Second, Silas and I are just friends. Third move, you're blocking the aisle. I'm trying to study. We just want an explanation, the girl insisted, voice shaking. Don't brush us off. I really thought you were a good person. I admired you. Yeah, Joe, another chimed in. You're seriously disappointing. I felt a headache coming on. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Sarah leaning against a desk, arms crossed, quietly watching. She was smiling. Our homeroom teacher appeared at the door, face dark. Joe, out here. A sheet of paper was slapped down in front of me in the hallway. It was an essay for the state writing competition, my name printed neatly at the top. But the content, not my essay. The entire page was filled with the same creepy, hia hia hia. Care to explain this? My teacher asked coldly. You said your answer sheet was a mistake and you weren't in a good state. What about this then? You were representing the school, and this is what you turn in. I narrowed my eyes at the ruined page. Don't abuse the fact that you're a strong student to do whatever you want, he continued. If you didn't respect the competition, you shouldn't have participated. You didn't just embarrass yourself. You embarrassed the school. You need to fix your attitude. Look at Sarah. She not only took first on the joint exam, but also won first place in the state essay contest. He sighed. I have nothing more to say. Go back and reflect. I didn't move. Instead, I asked quietly, doesn't this seem strange to you? Both my joint exam and my essay went wrong. Yet Sarah came out first in both. She's never scored like that before. The teacher tapped the desk. If you're going to accuse someone, you need proof. Do you have any? I smiled. Sarah transferred in this semester. Our school's entry bar is sky high. Everyone here has serious family connections. She didn't just wander in off the street. Whoever got her in has enough pull to pull strings elsewhere. That also means she has access to other methods. I shrugged. I'm not saying she definitely did it that way. I'm just saying someone has already done something. So if I push back a little, what's the problem? The teacher hesitated. Fine. I'll talk to the principal. We'll arrange a separate exam for Sarah. He gave me a meaningful look. If you're right, no one can steal that from you. My eyes relaxed. Thank you, teacher. When I sat back down, Sarah walked over with a bright, innocent smile. Joe, doesn't it feel awful to be framed? She asked sweetly. Don't be mad at me. I only wanted you to know what it's like to feel completely alone. People like you, born with a silver spoon, never understand real suffering. Isn't it unfair? So many people are struggling, and you just glide through life getting everything. I'm just balancing the scales a little. She sounded like she was handing out justice. I answered lightly. Have you had your head checked? Sarah froze. What? I just find it strange your family lets you out like this, I said, tilting my head. You'd think they'd at least teach you how to pretend to be normal in public. Her expression twisted. She looked like she wanted to curse me out, but something stopped her. A moment later her eyes reddened, tears gathering. She shifted into a trembling, wounded act. I was just trying to encourage you, Joe. You've slipped so much. Of course you're upset. I wanted to help, but you humiliated me instead. She turned to the class. It's my fault. Don't blame Joe. Her scores dropped suddenly. She must be under a lot of pressure. I really should have picked a better time. The classroom went silent. Then someone muttered, Sarah, Joe didn't really do anything to you though. Why are you crying? Yeah, another agreed. Joe walked in and sat down. You went over there on your own. I can't stand this kind of fake act, a girl grumbled. If it were me, I'd have slapped you already. Joe's too patient. Panic flickered in Sarah's eyes. She clearly hadn't expected the class to side with me. Just then, the girls who'd been punished for dating came back from the office. They looked exhausted and furious. Sarah, one of them said sharply, tell us the truth. Was it you who reported us and pinned it on Joe? Sarah went pale. No, it wasn't me. A lazy voice drifted from the doorway. Then how do you explain this? Silas strolled in, dangling a small recorder between two fingers. He hit play. Sarah's voice poured out into the room, clear as day, her whispering to a teacher about inappropriate relationships, naming names, then suggesting they look into Joe while they were at it. Everyone listened to the end in dead silence. That's fake. Sarah burst out. It's edited. You're all working together to frame me. A hot-headed girl rolled her eyes and stepped forward, blocking Sarah's path. Don't run. Explain it first. What's going on here? Our homeroom teacher appeared again, expression stone cold. Sarah, Joe office. Now, the retest was scheduled for the next week. Why am I the only one taking an exam? Sarah demanded. I earned my score. The school doesn't doubt you, the dean said mildly. You just improved a lot at once. This is standard procedure. We'll have you take a supervised version to confirm it. Sarah jabbed a finger toward me. Then I want Joe to take it with me. Of course, the dean said. That's actually what she requested. Sarah's smug little smile told me she thought she'd already won. She had no idea the conditions of this exam were something I negotiated a week ago. We were placed in the same classroom, diagonal corners, 2 proctors, cameras. Standard testing environment. 5 minutes before time was up, I finished, checked every line and put my pen down. I relaxed for a second and froze. The neat rows of formulas and paragraphs I'd just written vanished. In their place, line after line of that same mocking hiya crawled across my answer sheet like graffiti. I turned my head. Sarah was already looking at me, eyes bright with triumph. Her mouth moved silently. Didn't see that coming, did you? I calmly picked up my answer sheet, tore it cleanly in half and dropped it into the trash can. Sarah went rigid. Joe, what are you doing? I ignored her. I picked up my exam booklet, the one with the questions and my rough workings, and walked it up to the proctor. Finished, I said. Sarah panicked. He didn't even turn in an answer sheet. That shouldn't count. It's not an official district exam, I said mildly from my seat. This is an internal validation exam. The teachers can mark the booklet. Sarah shut her mouth. Of course, she didn't know that I was the one who asked for separate answer sheets and a more relaxed format. I'd gone out of my way to create the perfect cheating environment for her. And she hadn't disappointed me. She'd wasted her trick on my answer sheet instead of her own. When the results came back, the grading teacher read them out in a complicated tone. Sarah 16. Joe 138. Sarah lurched forward, grabbing at the stack of papers. That's impossible. You mixed them up. This one is mine. I'm not mistaken, the teacher said quietly, adjusting his glasses. Sarah, you scored near perfect on the math midterm. Yet on this test, your work is completely inconsistent. How do you explain that? He pointed at a simple trigonometry problem. Tell me your thought process here. Sarah's face flushed red as she stumbled over half-finished sentences, never reaching an actual solution. This is basic, he said finally. We'll need to reevaluate the validity of your earlier scores. He sent me back to class and kept Sarah behind. As I left, I caught the pure hatred in her eyes. Did she really think I wouldn't fight back? The next day, the scoreboard in the hallway had a heavy line drawn through Sarah's first-place ranking. No public announcement, but everyone understood. Her already fragile social standing collapsed. I knew she'd retaliate. I just didn't expect her method to be so childish. One afternoon, I went into the supply room to grab some materials. The door slammed shut behind me, then clicked as someone threw the lock. Sarah's voice came muffled through the wood, smug and breathless. It's after school. Everyone's gone. You'll be in there all night, Joe. I already cut the power to this hallway. No security cameras, no proof. Don't bother trying anything. I glanced at the locked door, then turned to the window. The supply room was on the second floor. Not high enough to be a problem. I stepped onto the windowsill, dropped lightly to the ground, dusted myself off and walked home. I was halfway through my nighttime skincare routine when I realized something was off. I hadn't seen Silas at all after school. I narrowed my eyes and called him. Twice. No answer. Fine, I muttered. I'll yell at him tomorrow. The next day, our grade went on a spring field trip to a nearby park. Midway through, one of my classmates grabbed my arm, looking frantic. Joe, thank God you're here. I thought you all disappeared. Have you seen Silas or Sarah? They're not with you. My hand stilled. No. We've been looking for them for 15 minutes, he said, voice dropping. Maybe we should tell a teacher. If something happens. Go, I said. Tell them. I'll call Silas's family. When they finally found Silas, he was lying in the bushes off the path, clothes rumpled and half-torn, skin smeared with dirt. His face wasn't its usual pale ivory but a sickly gray. He swatted away anyone else who tried to help, only letting me near. He grabbed my wrist with ice-cold fingers. His voice was barely a whisper. Joe, I knew you'd come. He tried to bury his face against my chest, shoulders trembling like a broken-winged butterfly. I didn't let him. I caught his chin, tilting his face up just enough to see the smears of dark, drying stains on his shirt and neck. Not his blood. He exhaled shakily. It's not mine. I lost him. He ran. I patted the back of his hand, my voice calm. It's fine. I'll handle it. This time the anger in my chest burned cold and clean. Sarah wanted to play games? Fine. Let's see who outlasts who. A few days later, they found Sarah. Her body was discovered near a highway on the outskirts of the city. The official report said she'd died of hypoxia under unclear circumstances. I stared at the photo of the sheet-covered shape on the roadside and felt absolutely nothing. This wasn't over. Professor Reed, I said into the phone, are you free? I found a very interesting research subject. You're going to love him. Silas wasn't physically injured that day in the bushes, but his health tanked. He'd walk a few steps and be out of breath, his stamina shot. I spent my days in class and my nights in the hospital. Silas behaved like a particularly clingy large dog. His head rested on my thigh as I sat by his bed, damp eyes shining up at me. Joe, he drawled, dragging out the last syllable in a whiny tone completely at odds with the terrifying teenager he'd become. I rapped my knuckles lightly on his forehead. Stop squirming. I'm memorizing vocab. He narrowed his eyes, stole my vocabulary book and yanked me under the covers. No more studying. You're here, so you're mine. He barely finished the sentence when he doubled over coughing, one hand clamped over his mouth. When he looked up again, his lashes were wet, eyes shimmering with complaint and hurt. A faint guilt tugged in my chest. Fine. I tucked the blanket securely around him. Sleep. If you don't behave, I'm not coming tomorrow. He looked even more wounded. How is that comforting? That's a threat, Joe. Works, doesn't it? He lunged forward, looping his arms around my waist with surprising strength. You're the best. Don't leave, Joe. I grunted, trying to pry him off. You're squeezing too tight. On his birthday, I brought him a gift, a glossy black king snake. Maybe it was a kind recognizes kind situation. The little thing was unnervingly docile in his hands. Joe, give him a name, Silas said, eyes bright. Name him yourself, I said lazily. He did. And then to my horror, I found him days later crouched by the heated terrarium cooing. Joey, be good and eat. Joey, when you meet Mom later, you better behave. I walked in just in time to hear. Joey, you're the cutest. Are you calling this snake Joe? I asked, expression blank. Silas jumped then slowly turned, smile too pure to be real. He was still silent. No brain damage, unfortunately. The rest of the world, though, was getting weirder. One night, a video played silently on my phone. A black sedan swerved out of nowhere in the pouring rain, slamming into the empty Maybach in front of it. Both cars had no drivers. They scraped along the guardrail and finally ground to a stop, metal twisted. Same make and model as the one that hit you, I said, handing the phone to Silas. Both remotely controlled. Any suspects? Silas pulled out a folder, flipping it open. Both cars are registered to my cousin Mason. Mason Vane was exactly what his reputation promised, a spoiled rich brat. Years ago, he'd met me at a family event, didn't know who I was, decided I was his type and tried to impress me with a condo and a car. Silas had dragged him off in front of Mason's father to educate him. Mason had avoided us for months afterward, then gotten shipped overseas. He'd only recently come back to the States. Someone like him doesn't have the guts to come at you openly, I said, unless he wants a cut of the family company. Silas arched a brow. He's never cared about the inheritance. Now suddenly he does? Suspicious. My phone buzzed. Professor Reed. I detected it again, he said, excitement vibrating in his voice. That energy signature. It's back in your city. I met Silas's gaze. We both understood. The thing behind Sarah, the thing that had been using girls to fix Silas for years, was still here. A plan formed in my mind, slow and precise. Good, I told the professor. I'll bring you a live sample. Mason invited us to a private party a week later. Joe alone, he asked when I walked in. Where's my cousin? Busy, I said, dropping onto a couch. He says he misses you though. Says he'd love to see you at the next family dinner. Mason laughed awkwardly and changed the subject. The room was full of young heirs and bored socialites, perfect chaos fuel. Someone suggested a game. Step 1, draw cards. Matching suits became a team. Step 2, pull a challenge card. Complete the dare, win the round. Mason smirked at me, waving his card. Joe, come on. Play. I drew a card and tossed it onto the table. Spades king. Mason's face changed slightly as he placed his down. Same card. Ladies first, he said, sliding the challenge deck toward me. I drew online gaming. I didn't know how to play that game. I lost. By the rules, I owed him a car. The second round we played pool. I lost again. Mason's eyes gleamed with something more than mischief as he pushed a tumbler of amber liquid toward me. How about something more exciting? Dare you to drink this, Joe. I stared at the glass for a few seconds. All right. I'd barely lifted it when a hand caught my wrist. Silas. He plucked the glass from my fingers and downed it in one go, wiping a drop from the corner of his mouth. I'll drink it for her, he said lazily. Any problem with that? Mason's eyes narrowed for a heartbeat before he smiled. No problem. I yanked Silas down beside me. Didn't I tell you to stay home? I hissed under my breath. He laced our fingers together, Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed. You knew it was dangerous. How could I let you come alone? I rubbed my temples. Fine. You're here. Don't drink anything else. Too late, he murmured. My chest hurts. Maybe rub it for me. I pressed my palm against his sternum, feeling his heartbeat pounding too fast. After a moment, I pulled back. He was still strong enough to argue. He'd live. Third round racing. I'm in, I said. But let's make it interesting. Right hand cuffed to the wheel. First to the finish wins. I waved to an assistant I'd prepped in advance. He brought over a special set of metal cuffs. Mason barely glanced at them before snapping one on. Silas insisted on riding shotgun with me. The first lap, I stayed 10 yards ahead. Every time Mason tried to pass, I cut him off cleanly. My cuffed hand never slipped. Final lap. The braking system suddenly felt off. The pedal resisted, then jolted. My car swerved. Next to me, Silas's face had gone paper white, a sheen of sweat over his brow. That drink hadn't been just whiskey. My grip tightened on the wheel. At the last second, I swung us clear, our fender kissing Mason's car as I forced a clean stop at the finish line. I stepped out, walked calmly to Mason's car before he could unlock the cuff and jerked his door open. A knife blade pressed against his throat. Long time no see, Sarah, I said pleasantly. For a second, Mason's irises flickered, something dark and familiar swimming behind them. His lips curled. So you recognized me, he said in Sarah's voice, layered over his own. Go on. Stab me. It's not like I'd really die. True, I said and pressed my thumb on a switch in my pocket. Mason's pupils blew wide as his body convulsed. He clutched his chest, collapsing to his knees, face twisted in pain. Joe, what did you do? He gasped. The cuffs are custom, I said lightly. Professor Reed has spent 3 years studying that little energy signature of yours. You were so generous, leaving traces everywhere. These are tuned to you. He trembled on the asphalt, breath coming in ragged bursts. Behind us, people shouted, but Silas had already moved them back with a lazy smile and a cold stare. I dialed the voltage up a notch. You can try to slip into someone else again. I went on, but this body will go with you. Either way, you don't walk away clean. I crouched down to meet his eyes. So here's the deal. You stabilize Silas's condition, stop whatever you did to him, and maybe I'll stop turning you into a lab rat. If you don't, I thumbed the switch higher. His scream broke off into a choked gasp. You're not going anywhere, I said softly. Not this time. Either you help him or you fold here. Your choice. Sweat dripped down his temples. Finally, through gritted teeth he hissed, stop. I'll fix him. Only then did I ease my finger off the switch. Once I confirmed Silas's vitals had evened out, I turned Sarah/Mason over to Professor Reed. The professor's eyes practically sparkled. More than 1,000 days of data, and finally the core specimen, he muttered. Don't worry, Joe. I'll keep him very busy. I didn't doubt it. Silas stayed in the hospital for another week, before waking up properly. He was fine physically. Mentally, he remembered everything up until age 6. And then nothing. The 6-year-old version of Silas had not liked me very much. Now I had a 21-year-old body with a 6-year-old brain glaring at me from a hospital bed. Who are you? He demanded, clutching the blanket to his chest. I sat down and patiently walked him through the entire story. Well, a sanitized version. He listened, eyes wide, clearly not sure whether to believe me. To keep him entertained, I brought his black king snake from home. The moment I opened the carrier, he flinched back like I'd pulled out a gun. What are you doing? Keep that thing away from me. This. I lifted the snake. This is your favorite pet. Why so scared? He stared for a long moment, then slowly extended a hand. The snake wrapped itself around his wrist, relaxed and content as if it had found its rightful perch. Watching them, I slipped out of the room. When I came back in the afternoon, I heard him grumbling softly. Why would she name you that? I looked up. He was reading the sticky note I'd slapped on the terrarium. Joe's little nest. He stared at it for a long time, then seemed to figure something out. The next second he was calling the snake, right in front of me. Joe, Joe, Joe. If this were the old Silas, I would have hit him. But this was a 6-year-old mind in an adult body. I swallowed my irritation and pretended not to hear. His memory started to come back in patches. First age 6, then 9, then 12, until it snagged at 15. Right at the days when I'd been ignoring him after one of his more psychotic stunts. He was well enough to be discharged by then. So for convenience, I let him stay at my place while he recovered. That first night, I woke to the feeling of something warm creeping into my bed. My hand brushed bare skin. I snapped awake and shoved. Silas, if you don't get off my bed, I'll tie you up and roll you outside. He blinked at me, eyes huge and innocent. Didn't you say we were engaged? I said we'd talk after your memory comes back, I growled. Right now, your mental age doesn't even clear a PG-13 rating. He licked his lips, voice dropping, oddly sultry. I only remember up to 15. Isn't that kind of fun? Don't you want to try? Silas, I said quietly. He fell silent. For a heartbeat, the childlike softness drained from his face, replaced by something older, darker. Then I smiled thinly. If you keep this up, I'll show you what fun really means. You're so mean, Joe. Shut up. Sleep. I shoved him back into his own bed and burrowed into mine. Seconds later, warm breath brushed my ear. Well, if you're shy, he murmured. I'll just handle it myself. If he weren't still recovering, I'd have thrown him out the window. Later, after everything with Sarah and Mason had settled, and the police paperwork was handled with the Vane family's money and influence, Professor Reed showed me something. First, a file, an internal log titled System. Then a stack of printed pages, my mother's diary. The system's log read like the confession of something that had never been human. At the beginning, it said it was nothing but a drifting cluster of energy, barely conscious. Then it learned to bind itself to protagonists in different worlds, guiding them, feeding them, using their lives as fuel. It would attach itself to a host, a raider, and whisper instructions. Get close to him, make him fall, fix him. In return, it took their luck, their glow, their narrative weight. Most of its hosts obeyed. A few tried to fight back, to break free, even to destroy it. They all failed. Until it came here. Its first chosen raider in this world had bolted halfway through the tutorial. It lost track of them entirely. Probably dead, it noted. The world's destined male lead, the original Silas, in one timeline died early too. So it switched targets. This Silas was younger, it thought, easier to handle. Wrong. It bound host after host and sent them at him. Sweet, cute girls, cold, aloof girls, gentle, graceful girls, bubbly, optimistic girls. None of them worked. Some even preferred to be erased rather than keep trying to get close to Silas. It tried to bind the little girl next to him, me, but every time it reached for me, something repelled it. So it picked outsiders like Sarah instead. Sarah is lonely, starved of affection, obsessed with her own fantasy, the log said. A perfect candidate. Except Sarah was stupid. She wasted all the system skills picking fights with me instead of actually fixing Silas. And when she tried to trap me in the supply room with him, she'd been the one to panic and run. I got fed up, the system wrote. I erased her and decided to do it myself. Silas would either become mine, or be erased with her. Professor Reed placed the log aside and tapped my mom's diary. This is the reason you were immune. I opened it. The first entry was dated February 5th, years before I was born. Finally got rid of that stupid system. I swear, if I had to run one more strategy route for that thing, I'd explode. Thank God for Professor Reed. Without him, I'd still be stuck. I convinced Ming to fund his research project. Worth every dollar. April 1st. Apparently, I'm 3 months pregnant. Professor wants me to keep the baby. He says he'll help raise her. That's not the point. I can't stay in this world more than 20 years. When I leave, what happens to her? April 6th. Lying on the operating table today, I swear I felt the baby move. She felt sad. I suddenly couldn't go through with it. October 7th. She's here. A baby girl. She's perfect. November 8th. Professor asked what we're naming her. I dug through so many names. In the end, Joe. Joe Vane. I hope she grows up gentle and warm. Years passed in a few pages. Then, June 1st. I had a nightmare. Joe was crying. Someone was hurting him. July 3rd. Took Joe overseas. I hope everything in that dream was fake. A year later. Dream changed. Joe and that little lunatic Silas don't meet until they're 18. By then I'm gone. Joe still ends up locked up by him. A week later. I won't let that happen. If Silas disappears, Joe is safe. December 4th. Silas is harder to kill than I thought. Broke a knife today, but I managed. Joe is safe. The next line was scratched and hard enough to almost tear the paper. Why did everything reset? I killed him. Why is he back? Entry after entry recorded her rage and panic as the timeline rewound itself every time she solved Silas too directly. Okay. Second reset. Third reset. This isn't working. I need a new plan. June 5th. I'll start with Joe. If Silas is sick, then I'll train my kid to cure him or kill him if she has to. Training logs followed. Physical conditioning, combat drills, anti-tracking exercises, poison resistance. I sent Joe to Professor Reed. He'll keep training her. She's improving fast. Got her 2 butterfly knives. She loves them. Found a snake randomly in the house today. Pretty sure it's from that brat Silas. The plot's already drifting from the original timeline. Good. I put micro cameras on Joe whenever she leaves. She's doing great. Silas tried something again. Got beat up. Serves him right. Silas in the hospital. Went to see him. Half dead. Honestly, satisfying. Joe looked upset though. Joe visits him every day now. That idiot. Joe's going to college. From here on out, it's all up to her. Mom has to clock out soon. Joe, if you ever read this, I love you. Live however you want. I closed the diary slowly. Outside the window, the city lights blurred into streaks, like smeared neon across the sky. My mom had broken out of the same system that had tried to turn Silas into a specimen. She'd thought it died once, rebooted with the entire world over and over. Then realized brute force wouldn't work. So she changed tactics. She raised me to be the person the system couldn't touch. It thought Silas was its destined male lead. It thought I was just the cold childhood friend who broke him. It never considered the possibility that I was the knife my mother had sharpened for 15 years and left behind. Now somewhere in Professor Reed's underground lab, the system was trapped in a containment unit, its energy bound to shock cuffs and experimental arrays. Silas was stretched out on my couch. A black snake curled around his wrist. Eyes following me like I was the only thing in the room that mattered. Joe, he called lazily, come here. He walked over. What now? He hooked a finger in my sleeve. I was just thinking. Don't, I said. He paused. You didn't even hear it. With you it's never good. He smiled, and for a moment, I saw the 6-year-old porcelain doll and the teenage psychopath overlap perfectly. Joe, he said, let's stay like this forever. I remembered his wall of pinned butterflies, their wings frozen in the most beautiful moment of their short lives. Fine, I said. But I'm not a specimen. His hand tightened around my wrist, warm and very, very alive. Of course not, Silas murmured. You're the only one I'd never dare pin down. I didn't tell him that if he ever tried, I already knew exactly how to break the glass,